My name is Chloe Wardrick, and I'm a third-year architecture student, and I am here today with Vivian, talking about a little bit about her achievement with AIA and how she has gotten into her role today. And Vivian, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that would be great.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Chloe, for having me. And it's an honor to be part of this program from obviously Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, my alum. And I still remember the day when I got the acceptance letter. I think was like my happiest day. And it's been really rewarding to see where I am and be able to give something back to the school. And I feel that is, it's my obligation after 30 years of practicing, and I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for Cal Poly. When I was in Cal Poly, I knew about the international program and the Alexandria, Virginia consortium. And of course, like having grown up in South America, I always enjoy traveling. I want to go out and meet people and see places. And so for my third year, I was like, I want to apply to the Alexandria program, right? And I was lucky enough. I think I was the last person who was able to do the Alexandria program my fourth year and the IP in Italy for my fifth year. So technically, I think one of the questions was, what was your experience in Cal Poly? It's like, well, not much, because half of it was outside the campus, right? What was great about the program it was that it offered the possibility of doing an internship. So when you're doing the school year, you would work in the morning from 9 to 1, and then you go to your studio classes, right, from 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So it was a very good balance. And of course, like while working, you gain a whole set of experience that you do not usually get from the school. And when the school year was over, we all sort of stayed on and did a full-time summer internship. And I think at the time I was working at some firm in DuPont Circle in DC, which was great. And then from there, I applied to IP. At the time, Cal Poly offered 2 IP programs, one in Copenhagen and one in Florence, Italy. So I picked Florence because I thought, well, Italian is kind of similar to Spanish, right? So I'm probably gonna have an easier time picking up the language. And I was like, okay, so I went and I loved it. And that was sort of the key milestone of where I ended up and where I am today. So after a year, I was fluent in Italian. I was going to school full time, but I was also, I had a part-time job on the side for this small firm, Riccardo Bertoni. And after I graduated in 1991. And that, you're probably too young to remember, but there was a major recession in 91. And I remember there was a front page news in the San Francisco Chronicle. And he says, in this tough times, just be glad you're not graduating from architecture school. Bam, and this is sort of, so right now I can relate to some of the students graduating this year, because the students from my class, we needed to all of a sudden think of other ways to find a job, right? Students have student loans, we need to get a job. What do we do? So I decided to stay in Italy, and that's probably like one of the best decisions that I made. I worked for a small firm in Florence, Italy, and they needed someone who spoke English, and because they were doing a lot of boutiques, fashion boutiques like Dolce & Gabbana, Versace, and outside of Italy, like all over the world. There's a lot of boutique shops, and they needed someone to coordinate and design and carrying out through the process as the project architect. And at that time, also, Italy was a little bit behind in terms of technology, and I set up their whole CAD system. This is AutoCAD release 12, Art 12. When I was there, I met another American student from Miami, and he was telling me, he's like, you know what, I'm gonna go back to the States after the summer, right? And I was like, why'd you want to go back? He's like, I want to get my master's degree. It's good to have a graduate degree. And I had to be honest. When I was at Cal Poly, I never thought that it wasn't in my plan, right? Because Cal Poly offered a very solid B arc. and it's a 5-year professional degree. I never thought like, oh, why would I need a graduate degree? But what he said kind of, sort of sparked my interest is that he said, well, if you have a graduate degree, one day if you want to teach, that's another path that you could take. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea, right? So after a couple of years in Florence, I decided to just do it. I said, you know what, I should go ahead and get my degree. And at the time, Syracuse has their master's and MR2 program, which is like 1 year long. And so I applied, I got in. I was working full time and I was going to school full time. I really enjoyed it doing both things. I didn't want to give up work and I didn't want to give up, school. So I toughed it out and I, finally got my degree. And this is 1995. And then I thought, you know what, it's time for me to go back and get licensed. And when I came back to San Francisco, I got a job at, it was a joint venture between SOM, Michael Willis, and I was working at the San Francisco International Airport. I was working primarily on the sort of the interior lobby area and a lot of concession stands. So every time when I go back home right now, if I fly into the international airport, I'll go and see my babies, right? That was like one of my first projects. So when I was there and I decided to take some ARE classes, and I met someone who was taking the class from Gensler, and he said, "Oh, I heard that you just came back from Italy, right? And you did a lot. You have some interior experience, so doing interior boutiques and stuff. So like, I work for Gensler. Would you be interested in coming to interview with us?" I'm like, "Sure, right?" We had a 3-hour interview, and after 3 hours, I was offered a job, and they said, "Okay, when do you want to go to Hong Kong?" I was in Hong Kong Gensler for 2 years, and I had an amazing experience. I did projects in. I flew to China, like I'll travel to China once a week. I did a couple of projects in Hong Kong. I got a chance to go to Tokyo, to do a joint project with Tokyo Studio. I made a great relationship. I had great friends from people from Australia, from Singapore, from the Philippines. 2 years to 1999, boom, economic crisis in Asia. Okay, so then again, like, pick up my bag. So when I was in Hong Kong, one of the pastime is karaoke, and we used to go to karaoke all the time. And so I said, you know what? And one of my favorite songs is "The New York, New York" by Frank Sinatra. So I decided, you know what? Well, Frankie said, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere, right? So I think I'm gonna try my luck in New York. I came to New York and I felt, oh my God, this is home. This is great. I got to New York. I worked for a very high-end interior firm, and then I felt, you know what? This is not exactly my calling anymore. I think I'm gonna go and switch from interior to do more architecture. One firm gave me an opportunity, and he was my biggest mentor and sponsor, and his name is John Schiff. And I got a job at this AE firm in New York called EYP. It's an architecture engineering firm. And he gave me the opportunity to do my first ground up building. Fine arts, it was a fine arts school for NJCU, for the New Jersey City University's campus. And it was so amazing. It was so invigorating. I learned so much. I was working so hard, but every moment that I put in, every moment that I worked, it was one extra minute of knowledge for myself. And then at the time, there was another firm in New York that I really admire, and it's called Poshek Partnership, Jim Poshek. Now they changed the name to Ennead. I'm not sure if you heard of them. They're the one who did the Clinton Library out in Arkansas. But they did the planetarium in New York City, and they do amazing work. And I wanted to work there very badly. And through a connection that I have actually through my mentor, John Schiff, he basically got me an opportunity to interview with a partner. And I got a job because at the time they were looking for someone who can do the exterior enclosure for another school in Astoria. And the school happens to be called Frank Sinatra School of the Arts. So it was like, oh, this is a coincidence. And then one day, my boyfriend, who's also an architect, he came across an ad in the AIA website, and it says, "Oh, international design firm looking for an English/Italian speaker who has a master's degree and uses MicroStation." Okay, so MicroStation at the time in New York, there were 3 firms that used MicroStation. It was Poshek Partnership, Foster, and Richard Meyer and Partners. I ended up at Meyer's office, and I got hired because of my language skills, because I spoke Italian, and I did a whole entire CD set in Italian. Not only that, the project, we got LEED Platinum. It's one of the first LEED Platinum buildings in Europe. So, in terms of sustainability, like I was one of the first people who took the LEED exam. So in fact, I have LEED AP, so I'm grandfathered in. I don't have to renew it every 2 years. And so the whole LEED process, it was very challenging because we had to translate everything from English to Italian. And the architects, the contractors, the consultants was like, ma che cosa è questo LED? Not LED, right? The LED. And but then we all sort of collectively pushed forward and made this great effort. And just a week before the ribbon cutting ceremony, we got the LEED plaque, the LEED Platinum plaque. That was one of the highlights of my achievement, and especially because the project was a lab facility, and it's very difficult to get a LEED Platinum for a lab facility. On Meyer's office, it really gave me this amazing opportunity to do the things that I did. And I was there for 15 years, and I was the first woman who was promoted to principal. And then the Me Too happened. So, and this is like a whole different chapter of my life, which I can probably elaborate in a different talk, right? And I think, it was a very trying time for me, both personally and professionally. But the good thing is that I have persevered. I came out of it stronger and with a lot more wisdom and what I need to do in order to bring equitable practice into our industry. And it was, at the time, I was already involved with AIA, Women in Architecture, but the fact that the Me Too incident happened with someone that I really respected a lot, it had a huge impact. The 15 years I was there, I've never myself had any personal incidents or any kind of encounters that were described in the newspaper. I was very angry. I was very disappointed. I was very sad. It was this really sort of a flood of emotions, and I at the point I really wanted just to quit. But I told myself, I can't do that, because as a female leader in the firm, I needed to stick around. I need to be there for my staff. I need to be there for my clients. And so I had to make sure everything was okay before I can leave. So from that point, I basically tried to learn as much as I can from the experience, talking to attorneys, talking to HR, talking to colleagues, and what we can do in our profession to really make sure that it is not okay what people have been doing. It's not okay. And women, we need to have a voice. We need to be heard. We cannot, shy away from things like this. And it really pushed me to want to do even more for women in architecture. And of course at the time, before the Me Too thing happened, a very close friend of mine who is also a Syracuse alum. And she was elevated to fellow the year before, and she said, "Hey, Vivian, why don't you apply? You should apply." And I said, "Oh, really?" It's like, "Oh, I'm not sure I'm up for it." It's like, am I even experienced? Because you think of a fellow, you think a bunch of like old white men, right? And not that I want to generalize, but there's a high percentage of old white men. I'm sure they all deserve to be fellows, but I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And she said, no, no, you have accomplished so much. Your design is great. You have this amazing pedigree of design experience. You should definitely go for it. So I took her advice and I went for it. And I was also very, very lucky to have an amazing, super supportive sponsor, Sylvia Smith, who is a senior partner at FX Collaborative. She gave me the guidance and the support, and gave me the confidence to move forward. Unfortunately, the first year when I submitted, I did not get it. I did not get it, and it was very disappointing. And I think in a lifetime we learn through our mistakes and we learn through our failures. And at this point, I felt like, well, what I'm gonna do is like, forget it, I'm not gonna try it again. I was so angry at the process because it takes a lot of work to put the package together and make your cause like why you deserve to be a fellow. But then through the support of other female architects, and we decided to. My other close friend, she also went under Object 1, which is under design, which is the toughest category to get. Both of us were rejected the first year, and we decided to help each other out for the next year, right? So we became even much more involved with our initiatives in women in architecture, but also advocacy work. So we helped each other, we promote each other. We initiated design salons and design exchanges with the AI in New Orleans and the AI in Minnesota. And we created a vast network of support system through women in architecture. And then, so we applied again, we held down to each other very tight, crossed our fingers and hope for the best. And then of course, in February, I received the news. I was very ecstatic. It's almost like I feel like I can breathe again. And it's one of those milestones in your life that you achieve and you say like, okay, I've done it. I finally done it. And then the COVID happened. So, life is full of surprises, right? You think you got it, everything is going to be hunky-dory, moving on, and then it throws in another curveball. And now I think what's so exciting for me is as the executive director at Woods Bagot, I'm collecting everything that I have learned so far, 30 years of experience, and I'm really pushing out and try to forge a new path ahead of me, as a leader of the firm, where I guide the design direction. I make sure that the staff is taken care of. I have to make sure that the finances are in place. I have to, so it's a very different role, but it's a role where I feel like I can actually contribute and make a difference. And in your lifetime, if you can make that one little difference, right, to a person sitting next to you, to your community, to your profession, you've done it. So that's, I get emotional talking about this because it's a long road that I have traversed, and it's a path that I've taken. Sometimes you make decisions, you don't know where it's going to lead you, but rest assured, whatever you do, eventually it's going to take you to a better place. And you just build upon that, you build upon that, layer after layer. And when you accomplish something, then you're going to feel like, oh, I can do some more. I can do some more. And that's what keeps your life fulfilled. That's what makes you keep your passion, ignited, and that's what makes you a good architect.
Thank you for spending time with us and explaining your life story and how you've become such an influential leader in our industry today. And I appreciate you taking time out of your day.
Well, likewise, thank you for taking the time and the interest. And, and in the future, if there's anything that I can do to contribute to Cal Poly and, to the student body, feel free to reach out to me.